Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. Today I want to talk about a post left by Severlin, the executive producer of DDO, which I felt was very important, and to me, it was a big sigh of relief. The quote addressed the developers' goals for difficulty in future content, particularly the Temple of Elemental Evil. Now, who's to say whether they'll stick with this attitude past that, but we know that at least for the Temple of Elemental Evil, the difficulty settings of normal, hard, and elite are going to be harder than what we're used to. I'll read you the exact quote. Severlin said, "We are planning on having hard mode for Temple of Elemental Evil be hard and elite to be really hard. A much larger ramp up than the content you are used to. Our plan for in-game folks who want hard content that promotes teamwork is giving that to them for the new content we are introducing." So now we know that content will be harder going forward, at least for the next update. If you've seen my videos, you know that I'm in the camp that believes the game has gotten too easy. I mean, come on, I have videos of me soloing epic elite raids on a battle cleric on this channel. That shouldn't be possible. I shouldn't be able to do that. In-game today, almost every time I pug in a full group, it's a complete steamroll in epic elite, no matter which quest it is. Sometimes it's harder than others, and depending on how many players are in the group and how skilled they are, it can vary. But for the average pug that I run into, I don't have any problems in any Epic Elite content outside of a few of the Epic Elite raids. I know it's not this way for everybody, but making content harder going forward can give players like myself the challenge I want without shutting out other players from the content, since there's other difficulty settings. And if you have no desire to run the harder difficulties, don't worry about it. If they stick with the same formula they did in Necro 4, and all indications that I've read assumes that they will, the loot is going to be more or less the same on all difficulties, the only exception being mythic versions, which will be slightly better and will have a much higher drop rate on Epic Elite, but they're not going to be anything that's a must-have for any build. I would be shocked if they made must-have loot drop exclusively in Epic Elite. All indications that I'm getting from posts seem to say that this is not the case. They don't want players to be forced to run the highest difficulties. I believe they only want the highest difficulties to be there for players to run them should they want the challenge. Now, there also needs to be some incentive to run the highest difficulties, but by no means do I believe that they're going to make your character vastly gimp if you can't run Epic Elites, or put some super amazing piece of loot only in Epic Elite. I don't think that's going to happen. So now we know that going forward, at least for the next update, content is going to be tougher. Someone brought up on the forums, why aren't they making older content more difficult as well? And I've kind of spoke about this before on the channel, but I believe the main reason they're not making changes retroactively to older content and increasing the difficulty back there is because it makes XP more difficult to obtain. And we saw this with the Monster Champions when they were introduced. A lot of players didn't like the fact that elite streaking was now harder, that XP was now harder to obtain. And I think the prospect of forcing players to run hard when they have gotten used to running elite also upsets a lot of players. Making new content harder going forward is fine though, since players have not yet gotten used to that content. Players should be fine with new content being difficult. It's being forced to run existing content, older content, on lower difficulties that they've gotten used to stomping through an elite that really upsets players. Again, it's all about managing player expectations. You cannot give players an easy time in content and then go back and make that content harder. I've used this analogy before, but it's like giving candy to a baby. You can't give players the present or the candy of an easy experience through Epic Elite on content, and then go back retroactively and make that content harder. It upsets them because it ruins their expectations. Once content is made easy, you can't go back and make it harder. Players get upset. However, it's not the case for new content. When a new pack comes out, there are no expectations from players. If it's hard, if it's very difficult, it's fine. Players won't get upset because they don't have any preconceived expectations to get mad about. Going back to the analogy, it's like giving candy to a baby. If you give candy to a baby and then take it away, it cries. But if it never had that candy in the first place, it won't cry. And through that analogy, I by no means am trying to discredit or belittle anyone who disagrees with me on this. You can't give players candy and then take it away from them. But if they never get that candy in the first place, they won't get upset when it's not there. So going forward, we can make content harder. Right? Going backwards, we're stuck with what we have. And there's probably nothing the developers can do for older content in terms of making it more difficult without making a significant portion of the player base upset. The only thing they could do is introduce a new level of difficulty above Elite, but that does not seem likely from reading the developer posts on the forums, even though I'd love to see it. I'll put a link to this quote in the description below. That way you can check out the related thread and read it if you'd like. So overall, I have to say, great job, devs. I'm really looking forward to the next update in the Temple of Elemental Evil, and I'm especially looking forward to being challenged again in a full group of geared, experienced players. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe and tell your DDO friends and guildies about my channel. Thanks for watching.